for strength that we may ever live our lives courageously. God, please hear the prayer we offer, not for ease that prayer shall be, but for strength that we may ever live our lives courageously. Be our strength in times of weakness, in our wanderings, be our guide, through endeavor, failure, danger. Forever at our side. God, please hear the prayer we offer, not for ease that prayer shall be, but for strength that we may ever live our lives courageously. God, please hear the prayer we offer, not for ease that prayer shall be, but for strength that we may ever live our lives courageously. This is our day for sharing memories of Dan. Memories that possess the power to bring us comfort in his absence. Memories that possess the power to remind us of the ways in which he will always be present. Yes, this is our day for sharing memories of Dan, and this is most certainly the way for us to do it. This large gathering of loved ones and cherished friends expressing gratitude, joy for having been blessed to be a part of Dan's incredible life journey. And this is also the place for us to do it, right here in the sanctuary of Baeck Temple, where Dan and Joanne have found their spiritual home for nearly half a century. Of course, even as I say that, I can hear Dan's voice in my ear, saying that Baeck Temple was the place where he could push back against all of those depictions of God in the Bible that he found so deeply disturbing. And to be sure, you could not be Dan's rabbi without feeling that pushback. And my two predecessors as this congregation's senior rabbi would certainly join me in attesting to that. But that was just a part of Dan living his life with a rigorous honesty that his loved ones and his cherished friends so deeply treasured in him. For 86 years, he did it his way. Dan read and learned and taught. He gave wise counsel, looked out for others, particularly those who felt like underdogs to him. And he savored music, and he delighted in making it for others. And he built things with his own two hands in his beloved workshop, and he built loyal and lasting relationships with his heart, especially with those who loved him the best. His precious Joanne, with whom he would have celebrated a 46th wedding anniversary on this very day, today. And the generations who will carry his legacy the farthest. Erica and Alan and Chloe, and Victoria and Finian, and Carl and Chris and Jacob and Emery, and Debbie and Perry, and Raquel and Lucas, and Billy, and Betsy, and Scott. And so, with a story so vibrant to tell, we know that our remembrance of Dan today cannot be dominated, overtaken by the somber ancient rituals of the funeral. Today must be for celebrating the magnificence of Dan, who lived a story so well beyond full. And this is why it's fitting that we open this gathering today with gentle words of prayer, words composed by 19th century American Unitarian writer Love Willis, words that summon from us the strength of vision that we need to live our lives courageously in the face of our losses, to live courageously as Dan did, so that we can greet this moment with gratitude for all that we've had, not just with regret for everything that we surely shall greatly miss. So today will be for celebrating Dan much more than for grieving him. For as the psalmist wrote in his time of loss, I will not be shaken. My heart can exult. My soul can rejoice. My being is secure. For you, O God, will not abandon me to death. You show me the path of life. Sounds like the psalmist was as determined as our dear Dan, who certainly knew what he knew and was not going to be easily dissuaded. His life would be lived on his own terms, unapologetically, and most often with a margarita in his hand. For 86 years, Dan grabbed and shaped and held and fashioned life into a thing of beauty, just as he could do with a piece of wood. And so with his confidence, his determination, his bold spirit, and his readiness for joy, for savoring every last drop that life could provide, we will tell his story here today, and we will carry it lovingly into tomorrow. So we're going to hear today from several of Dan's loved ones and most cherished friends. We're going to hear in the following order. First, we're going to hear loving words from Dan's two sons. First, Carl will speak, and then Billy. And we'll then welcome Betsy's boyfriend, Scott, to share some words on behalf of Betsy and on behalf of one of Dan's very closest friends. And finally, Dan's daughters, Erica and Victoria, will share their remembrances.
My father faced the prospect of his imminent death with admirable stoicism. I took him to see Dawn of the Planet of the Apes last month, and he didn't think it was very good. But he said at least he wouldn't have to watch the sequel. In fact, shortly after he decided not to seek treatment for his cancer, my sister asked him if he was afraid. He said no. The only time he could recall ever being afraid was when I was 5, and he and I were sailing Santa Monica Bay, along with my uncle, who's here today, and several others. I'd finished taking a nap below deck, and when I came up to the cockpit, I somehow managed to fall overboard before putting my life preserver on. Fortunately, this was noticed by everyone, and my father followed me into the sea, keeping me afloat while the crew commenced a man-overboard maneuver. In the meantime, they tossed us a life ring, which, in the best tradition of the Keystone Cops, immediately sank. In that moment, my father, who for all his varied talents was not a good swimmer, thought that we might not make it. He was afraid. I'll let all of you guess how that turned out, but he was 86 when he died. He'd survived the Depression, a tour of duty in Korea during the Korean War, where he even shot somebody, the Cold War, a triple bypass, seeing his business on the brink of failure, 2 marriages, and finally, being told approximately when and how he was going to die. And yet, for all of that, the only time he was actually scared was when the 2 of us were bobbing out there in Santa Monica Bay 50 some odd years ago. All of which suggests a healthy dose of don't give a shit. No surprise there. But there are a number of things he actually cared deeply about, like explaining stuff. He was an endless trove of arcane trivia decades before the rise and fall of Trivial Pursuit. Wondering who the captain of the Titanic was? He was your guy. Did you know that one rifle in a firing squad is always supposed to be loaded with a blank, so that every member of the squad can assuage their conscience by believing they're the one with the blank, and so didn't participate in the execution? Guess where I learned that. If you ever wondered aloud what that poem was about baseball in the Mudville 9, look out, because he'd recite Casey at the Bat in its entirety, complete with history on it. So explaining stuff was a big deal for my father, but so was doing a good job. It didn't matter if he was making a birdhouse in his workshop, cooking fudge, or playing the banjo. Among the countless aphorisms drilled into his children, one of his favorites was, a job worth doing is worth doing well. What he really cared most about, though, was his family, notwithstanding an occasional disregard for the shipboard whereabouts of his children. In fact, today, as has been mentioned, is the 46th anniversary of his marriage to Joanne, or, as I think of it, the day he decided that if 3 kids are good, 6 are better. Camping trips gave way to cruises, which gave way to spa holidays. But he loved having his kids around him as much as our scattered lives permitted. An adoring father became an adoring grandfather to Chloe, Finian, Raquel, Lucas, Jacob, and Emery. Ultimately, he cared about kind of an odd assortment of things, but they included the really important ones. And he made a tremendous difference in the lives of those around him because of it. If fear didn't make the cut, well, good for him. So, while my father occasionally left some of us scratching our head, I'm reminded that Raymond Chandler once said that after reading an article on the dangers of drinking, he decided to give up reading. The universe and the people in it often behave according to similarly loopy reasoning, and I think my father's outlook on life may have been an example of that. Nevertheless, if you ever find yourself adrift, as most of us do from time to time, you'll be very lucky to find someone like Dan Lautman to grab onto. Thank you.
My father, Dan Lautman, knew precisely how to live the life that he wanted to live. And almost nothing distracted him from doing just that until his final days with us. Perhaps, as my mother can attest to, because of his mastery of serenity-inducing selective repression. Despite the inevitable writing on the wall, being 86 years old, with prostate cancer, and with acute diabetes that would likely debilitate any other, Dan simply refused to succumb to the influences of age and health, opting instead to inject a nice, fresh morning hit of insulin and then all too often turn to everyone around and say, with a big smile, "Okay, who wants to go for Pink's chili dogs and then to 31 flavors for ice cream?" So this was a man living life. Dan Lautman walked a narrow path on this earth, yet one that I believe bestowed upon him a sense of personal accomplishment and feeling of content. He was a man to be admired, one who always took pride in being there to educate all who sought to drink from the well of his knowledge, and to promote the welfare and success of others with his endless generosity. Unlike so many in this day and age who seek to broadcast their deeds instantaneously and worldwide with the objective of achieving maximum attention and credit, Dan Lautman garnered tremendous personal satisfaction simply being what my late son Benjamin, also a grandson of Dan's, used to call quiet proud. Dan Lautman was the unsung hero to many. Whether it was helping to advance a sense of pride to an underprivileged East LA neighborhood baseball team by sponsoring the purchase of their jerseys, or going far beyond the call of duty and even sub-optimizing the productivity of his company, Hollywood Ribbon, by hiring a young individual with a sordid past living on the streets of downtown LA and suffering from a drinking problem, who yearned for just one person in this world to give him a chance to prove his capabilities, or by subtly undertaking just so many other deeds that hardly a soul in this audience of his closest friends ever even knew. Dan Lautman was a great man defined by quiet kindness. Many of us knew Dan to seek and encourage in others with unwavering fervor the insatiable acquisition of knowledge, be it trivia or scholarly or just learning new words for the first time. Dan loved my late son Benjamin and took immense pleasure in watching him grow and learn in the few fleeting years that he was with us. Indeed, our collective hope was for Benjamin to serve as the sole individual possessing the potential to carry the Lautman name torch on to future generations. We can all only imagine the connection that these two shared, and perhaps somewhere, somehow, now share together once again. When Ben just began to speak, he would, with infectious enthusiasm and a thirst to learn, sit with Dan on my parents' bed while glancing here and there all about the room at the various interesting objects, books and pillows and tchotchkes and the such, that he was very much determined to touch and examine immediately, and all at the same time. Ben would eagerly solicit Dan's assistance to make that gathering process happen by pointing his finger feverishly from one thing to another that he wanted Dan to go get for him, and in each such object, or for each such object, he would belt out to Dan, "This one, this one, this one." And later that day, Dan constructively queried of me, "Why does Ben look around the room and keep pointing to the different things that he wants me to bring over to him, and yet refer to every one of them as this one, this one, this one? Billy, you really need to recognize the importance of teaching personal pronouns to him early on." To which I responded that Wendy and I were all too aware of this new dynamic, and that despite our recent efforts to teach him the various specific words, his nanny and best friend, and, well, teacher by default, Magda, herself a fresh arrival from Poland, apparently shared with Ben the exciting opportunity to learn the entire English language, except apparently for the words "this one," which Magda proudly employed with Ben to identify, well, everything. When I shared with Dan our challenging, although sweet, educational roadblock, he gave me some slack in the time I could take to transform Ben into a Lautman scholar who could do Dan proud. Dan's tolerance for a metered learning process was not limited to grandchildren, but indeed shared directly by his children as well. One evening at the dinner table, Dan challenged Debbie and Betsy and me to submit that letter of the English language, which we thought was most commonly used in literature and other writing. We were all in the early part of our experience learning how to read, so Dan thought that his posed question would stir our imaginations and compel us to think analytically. Such was a noble cause of his, but one which became sidetracked when, in a moment of apparent insecurity and attendant need to prove herself to all at the dinner table, my sister Debbie, with great confidence and certainty in her voice, shouted out the response, "Two." Well, Dan loved Debbie just the same. Dan Lautman was also a man most happy when he saw others happy. Dan loved to recall a fresh fall morning years ago, which started out as a positively gleeful one for him. Such was the case because his drive to work produced an unusually significant number of smiles and waves, apparently directed to Dan by drivers who stopped alongside his car at what seemed like every red light on his way to work. This particular morning followed a noticeably teenager raucous-ridden Halloween evening in our neighborhood. So Dan, assuming that it was just a morning of shared cheer in Los Angeles, simply smiled and waved back to those affording him such similar expressions of what appeared to be pure elation. Finally, he arrived at work, to the horror of his employees, outside on the sidewalk in front of Hollywood Ribbon, who shuddered the very prospect of needing to apprise Dan that apparently during all of the Halloween commotion, some hooligan kid had spray painted on the passenger side of his S500 series Mercedes, and obviously unnoticed to Dan, the simple word fucker. And all this time, Dan Lautman said he was just so happy and tickled waving to all his new friends that made his way to work. In closing, but in no way ending, are reflections in memory of a good man, Dan Lautman. I shall share for the first time with anyone an assertion that Dan advanced to me over a recent meal together. Just us. Precisely 2 weeks ago to this day. I met Dan at one of his weekly squash games, after which we enjoyed one more in a series of lunches we planned together over the past several months. In the middle of our main course, Dan looked over at me with great intensity and proclaimed in an interrogative manner with chilling seriousness, "You know I am not going to die." Well, Dan Lautman, I did know that, and I do know that, because our memories of you and your full life and your charitable life will not soon be forgotten. Winston Churchill once stated, "This is not the end. It is not even the beginning of the end. But it is perhaps the end of the beginning." Dan Lautman, in the thoughts and fond memories of you that are held in the minds and hearts of all in this room, and in so many other corners of this world, you will indeed live on. So enjoy this next trip of yours, and wherever it may take you. And remember, as you so passionately taught us to say, for good luck upon every departure of ours. M&B. Mazon Bracha. And finally, I reiterate to you, Dan Lautman, in the very words that we committed to each other, hand to hand, at the conclusion of every coveted weekly Indian Guides meeting we attended together when I was a very young 8 or 9 years of age. Pals forever.
those are two very difficult people to follow. I'm honored to relate the thoughts of two very special friends and friend and daughter of Dan's who asked me to convey their thoughts. And I'm going to tell you briefly how I feel at the end of those thoughts. The next passage was written in the 1970s by Betsy, who was at the time approximately 12 years of age. Betsy found this next to Dan's bed Sunday night, shortly after Dan passed away. She had no idea he kept it right next to him for all these years. It goes as follows. I was 4 when this strange man walked into my house. I didn't know who you were or what you wanted or what you were even doing there. I said hello and went off to play. 4 months later, I learned that you would be my new father. At first, you frightened me, especially after you showed me a raccoon. I would never go places with you alone until one day you said, let's go to the Santa Glen Market and have an ice cream. Sure, I said. That was the beginning of our amazing relationship. You took me under your wing as though I was your real child. You called me Peanut. As time went on, I really felt you were my real father. You are the most special man in my life. You were always there for me, from needing help with homework to holding my hand when I had the stomach flu. You were the type of father a child would dream of having. You laughed with me. You played backgammon with me, taught me endless things, cried with me, and most of all, you loved me. I love you, Dan, and thank you for being the best father a child could ever have. I cry at happy things too. The next passage is from a dear friend who I'm sure many of you know is Dennis Wasser. And Dennis writes, Dan, when death has just happened, we look for words of wisdom on what a great common occurrence signifies. We grab at words of understanding to keep us from falling off the edge. Words may prevent our hearts from breaking, and when we write letters, essays, poetry, and finally eulogies, we are pushing our own hearts towards others in the hope that in companionship there will be relief. Since I am unable to be there and I feel so strongly about Dan, I offer these words. Dan was a wonderful man. He was omniscient. You could ask him anything and he would have the right answer. He explained boundaries of the solar system, the Milky Way, and the galaxies and the universe to me. He discussed Higgs boson. Dan knew lots and lots about the Hadron Collider. He wanted to explore the Big Bang, string theory, and parallel universes. He was so curious. How many times did we talk about gravity? He would often explore questions of law, music, and literature with me. And he could fix anything. There's a toy that we have in the house for our grandchildren. Every time it broke, we took it to Dan. The last time the toy fell apart, our grandchildren said, "Oh no, take it to Dan." He and I love the same foods: apple pan burgers, Chatham sandwiches, and Pink's hot dogs. If his sugar went too low and he looked dopey, I would just ask him whose impression was on the US $1 coin. If he didn't say Sacagawea, we gave him a hard candy or orange juice, and if he didn't improve quickly, we called 911. I was with him for dinner in July, and then again 2 weeks ago. He faced death the same way he faced life, head on, tough, no compromises or gimmicks, no shortcuts. No regrets either. He smiled at me on both occasions and said he was not interested in treating his problem with traditional medical therapy. If he was to die, he was ready. For non-believers like Dan and me, we can only look to science to explain the phenomenon of death. There is an old scientific discussion about death. It assures us that Dan's atoms are still alive, and his memory is in the minds and hearts of everyone who knew him. Our friend lives on in this world. The same scientists say we will hear him in the thunder and see him in the lightning and feel him in the rain. Facing the fatal hemlock, Socrates said, "To a good man, no evil will come, either in life or after death." Dan is safe, but oh, how we will miss him. I'm sure I can speak for everybody in the room what an incredible joy it was and how lucky we all were to just sit and converse with such a warm, well-rounded, unbelievably bright, energetic man who lived and shared life to the fullest. It was such a pleasure and an honor to be a small part of Dan's life. I, as I'm sure you will, think of Dan often and miss him greatly.
Hi there, I'm Victoria. This is Erica.
I'm Erica.
Yes, you are. Very tough, very tough. Glad you're all here. It means he was loved by a lot of people. I would just like to say, first, you're about to hear a unique poem that covers a lot of ground with Dan Lautman, who of course was extraordinary. If you're here, you know that. But there were some things that were left out. And in hearing all these accolades about my father, which are all true, I also want to tell you, he was such a pain sometimes. I recently, in July, went to play blackjack with him, which is our special thing. We go to the disgusting Hollywood casino, where we went every Monday, and he was so competitive. If I got, which was rare, he had really good luck most of the time. He lost a lot of money, too. If I got a blackjack, I mean, it sent him into a tailspin. And I had to literally stop playing squash, which I learned because I thought I could play with him, because he relentlessly would not let me get 1 point. And I was reduced to literally hitting him in the butt with the ball, which made him mad, and then I never played again. But so I just want to give another perspective on this guy. And you've heard a lot about the Pink's chili dogs. I mean, we're going through our minds thinking about these funny things that he did, which were true. He was a little bit eccentric. He had the most enthusiasm for life. He had an almost, I would say, childlike wonder for things. Do you mind when I'm going on so long?
Ask them, don't ask me.
Just bear with me. That he pretty much single-handedly, I think, for years kept the whoopee cushion, fake vomit, and rubber dog do industry alive. And when we deployed these objects on our family trips, of which there were many, you have never seen a guy get so hysterical laughing from these stupid things that, like, 5-year-olds like. He took great delight also in dropping red dye behind unassuming children in our swimming pool and then telling them that it made a chemical reaction when they urinated with the water, which I think increased probably the number of therapy sessions for these children for all time. They were roundly ridiculed. My dad loved it. You've heard about his, well, some of us knew his pet mongoose. That died, but now it's a pet raccoon who he kept in the wooden box that he created in his workshop, which probably also contributed to the heart attacks in Southern California. And if any of you coming by, this poor creature is still alive and mourning for Dad, and we will be happy to show it to you. It won't last long. Erica said she would volunteer to take it.
I helped build it with him.
Yes, the pen for this animal, a little small, but you'll delight in it. But finally, you've heard about Dad's curiosity, which I think most of us are familiar with. You've heard about how he knew virtually everything in the world, and if he didn't know it, he would make it up. We believed for years that brown cows created chocolate milk. He convinced us that all cows graze facing north, and you're such BS. And we lived with it our entire lives. And we're ridiculed like those kids with the red dye number 2 behind them. Dad questioned everything. He was a seeker. You've heard the universe, like why there were no baby seagulls in the world. He really wanted to know. But the question that occupied him for the last couple of years was this, and it was based on one of his favorite books, Dune. He wanted to know, and he asked us every day, what do the Fremen eat? And I'm sure that wherever he is now, he is seeking the answer to that question. To you, Erica.
Thank you.
Sorry.
When my father was turning 70 in 1997, I was trying to think of something to give him that would be meaningful, but that could truly come from all 6 kids. And knowing, as many of you might, but certainly all of us did, that his favorite movie of all time was Gunga Din, I had an idea that we could all get together and write a poem that was the story of Gunga Dan. And through telephones, I don't think we had computers then, we all decided we would each write a different verse and put it all together and tinker with it, and in fact we did, framed it and gave it to him for his 70th birthday. And he and Joanne both loved it so much that it has hung for the last 16 years in the den. And Joanne has asked us to read it to you. So with profound apologies to Rudyard Kipling
And Finian.
we share it with you now. Hot Springs, Chicago, and LA, that's the trajectory today. The life path of celebration for one man. Call him hubby, gramps, or dad, no finer fella can be had. That's why we're toasting 7 decades of Gunga Dan. Hooray for Dan, 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 Pink's chili chomping Gunga Dan. Thank God C.C. Brown's is no more. Your eating habits we deplore, but you're a better man than we are, Gunga Dan. You may talk of ribbons and bows and the hard work that you chose to support the budget of 6 kids and wife. But when it came to Sada, who would also play the fada, helping her and Fredo live the life. Now in Westwood's sunny clime, where after work you spend your time, pulling in the driveway of your home, when your horn screamed "Cowabunga," Sada knew that it was Gunga, so she'd better hurry and get off the phone. And it's Dan, Dan, Dan. We love to fear you, Gunga Dan. Though you've tickled us and teased us, no other could have pleased us. You're a better dad than we are, Gunga Dan. You won't forget the night when you heard with great delight that a cousin we would have for Raquel Lynn. Before Lucas we would meet the newest member of the fleet, the one and only Master Gunga Finn. He was Finn, 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 complete with drool and duty, Gunga Finn. Hi, Slippy, Dribble-O, diapers get in, hurry, go, your little Irish grandson, Gunga Finn.
I'm sorry, I couldn't read that. I had to make Erica read it. With a hammer and a nail, there's no task at which you fail. Something falls apart, then you're the man. As a carpenter, you rule. Christ himself would even drool. If it's broken, you can fix it, Gunga Dan. You are Dan, 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 the telescopic tough guy, Gunga Dan. From your famous fills of boulders to your homemade leaded soldiers, you're a better man than we are, Gunga Dan. At the stove, too, you're no drudge, slinging the world's best chocolate fudge. Not to mention working wonders with fried chicken. But be sure to take your shot, otherwise meals go to pot, and all of us will take a verbal licking. Oh, you're Dan, Dan, Dan. Cursing, reckless driving Dan behind you crashes, stretch for miles, still you fill us up with smiles, despite your dangerous ways, dear Gunga Dan. We are grateful for the trips on all the rivers, rafts, and ships that you and Gunga Joey have provided. So each time that we hear, okay, same time next year, we'll always answer, we would be delighted. Yes, you're Dan, Dan, Dan. Banjo playing chocolate man. On your birthday, we salute you. You're 70, you're big galucha. M&B on this next journey, Gunga Dan. That is all.
Don't cost me.
Beautiful stories, laughter, tears, fullness of everything we can feel, which is precisely what moments like this produce in us. We have heard a larger-than-life story, larger-than-death story of a remarkable man who lived a story without regret. So we're going to take a few moments now just to collect all of the beauty that we've heard here today and to allow the recollections that have been spoken aloud here to mingle with our own as we spend this time honoring the legacy in silent remembrance. these words of poetry written by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder, lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When a great soul dies, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. A great soul dies, and after a period, peace blooms. Slowly and always irregularly, spaces fill with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses, restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, he existed. He existed. We can be and be better, for he existed. With tremendous gratitude for having had the blessing of being each of us a small part of Dan's incredible life journey, we turn now to words of comfort, praying for Dan's compassionate embrace in God's presence, with the words of our memorial prayer, Amalei Rachamim. Please rise. Shohem Vamromi Hamitzeh Milucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina Im Kedoshim Utorim Kezohar Rakia Maziri Et Nishmat Daniel Shalach Le'olamo Barachamim Arachamim Yastereu V'seite K'nafam Le'olamim Nitzor Chaim et Nishmato Adonai Unachalato Yanuach V'shalom Avishkacho Amalei Rachamim, compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence. To Dan Lautman, who has entered eternity, God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence, in the shadow of your wings. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest peacefully. And let us together sing. Amen. Let's join together in speaking the words of the mourner's cottage for the first time in Dan's memory. Those words can be found on the inside of the prayer pamphlet that you received as you arrived this afternoon. Say together, Yitgadal Yitgadash Shemei Rabbah Ve'alma Yivrach Yemotei Yamlich Malchotei V'chayechon Yomechon V'chaye Bechol Beit Yisrael V'agalav Yisman Kariv Yimru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Ve'alam U'valmei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar, v'yit'aleh, v'yit'alal, shemei kudsha, v'richu. Ve'ela minkol b'rakata v'shirata, tushbekata v'nechamata, da'avira ve'alma v'yimru. Amen. Yehei shmama rabba m'shemaya v'chayim, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'romav, u'ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen. The giver of peace, send peace to you this time of morning, comfort to us all, as we always continue to remember and perpetuate his legacy. And together let us say, Amen. In just a few moments our service will conclude, and I want to just announce that everyone is invited to return to the Lautman home. That's 485 Loring Avenue in Westwood, right after the service, where we'll continue our sharing of memories this afternoon in smaller, intimate circles of conversation. Dan's loved ones so appreciate this overwhelming outpouring of love and sympathy on this day. When we conclude, I'd like to ask just for everyone to remain at your place for a moment. That will allow Dan's loved ones to be the first ones to exit our sanctuary through the front doors, and they'll then be ready to receive your condolences briefly in the temple's lobby on your way out. For now, though, we should conclude as Billy prompted us, concluding with the expression that Dan, you heard, always spoke for anybody that he cared about, went on a trip or was heading off to school or was heading into surgery, or really any time his family and friends were going on their way. You heard M&B, Dan would say. And though he was certainly not from the great religionists, Dan knew that M&B stood for Mazel Bracha, the Hebrew words wishing you luck and blessing. And so, from Dan, from his loving family, to all of you, M&B.